Today we are counting down the top 10 most valuable Marvel comics of the year 1997 based on their near mint price rankings in the annual Overstreet price guide. Let's dive in. In 10th place of the year is Daredevil 368. This key issue features Omega Red as the villain. We also have Daredevil and Black Widow, among others, in this issue. Print run was very small at this time, only 31,000 copies. It ranks 10th of the year and 261st most valuable Marvel comic of the 1990s. This book is not looked at highly on the CGC census, yet there are only 2 copies graded, both of them grading 9.6 or higher. Heritage Auctions has never sold a copy of this book on its own. Using the Overstreet price guide, we can see this is still a very affordable book. It's just a minor key at this point, but it's high enough to rank in our top 10. No price growth at all in lower grades. Actually, in all grades, it's been stalled, but it's a $10 book in 9.2 raw condition in the Overstreet price guide. And you can see on the census, there are only the 2 copies graded 9.8, and that is it. There are some few raw copies on eBay, so this one could become a gem here in the future. Continuing with our countdown, ranking number 9 of the year, definitely a key issue. Thunderbolts get their own series, number 1. This series would run for many years. We have Mark Bagley and Vince Russell cover and art here. The Thunderbolts revealed as the Masters of Evil. We have Wrecking Crew appearance in this one. We also get cameos from the Black Widow, Spider-Man, and the New Warriors. Print run on this major number 1 issue was 120,000 copies. It ranks 9th of the year and 214th of the decade. Almost 400 copies graded by CGC, including 296 at 9.6 or higher. Heritage has sold 2 copies of this number 1 issue. In the Overstreet price guide, it's been stalled in all grades for the last few years. Still only a $12 book. There are 209 9.8s on the census. A lot of people stocking up on this book for the future. Ranking 8th of the year, we have Deadpool number 2. This is Deadpool's first ongoing series. It debuted in 1997. This is the 2nd issue. We have Taskmaster and Siren appear in this issue. Print run estimated 82,000 copies. It ranks 8th of the year and 187th of the decade. There's 156 copies graded, 92 high grade. Heritage has sold no copies of this book on its own. In the Overstreet price guide, it's stalled in all grades, sitting at $15. There are 63 9.8s of this book on the census. In 7th place, we have Uncanny X-Men 342. Now, this issue has 2 different covers. So this is an early variant cover printed on purpose. This was a new trend at the time. It wasn't actually that common. Now it happens on all comics. But at this time in 1997, this was the rare variant cover with a white background featuring Rogue. Print run could be possibly 18,000 copies. We don't know what the ratio was, if there was a ratio or if they were printed 50-50. But we're going on the low end because this book has a lot more demand than the regular cover. It ranks 7th of the year, 177th of the decade, only 63 copies graded, 28 high grade. Heritage sold 5 of these. It had a small bump in high grade in the last year in the Overstreet price guide, still only $16, quite affordable. And on the census, you can compare the regular cover to the variant. And on the census, it's the variant cover that's actually the easy one to find at this point with 56 9.8s. Next on our countdown, in 6th place is Uncanny X-Men 350. Now, there's something you need to know about the way comics were marketed in the 1990s. They would say there was a direct edition and a newsstand version. But the newsstand edition is not actually the newsstand edition found on newsstands. It's just the non-fancy copy, which is also a direct edition. So in theory, that means there's actually 3 versions of this book. But the CGC census doesn't separate usually them all. So when it lists it as a newsstand, you got to be very careful. In this case, it is not a newsstand printing. It is the direct edition version called the newsstand edition. So beware of that. It's a bit confusing. In this key issue, we have the trial of Gambit. We also have Magneto appearing in this. We have a wraparound gatefold prism foil cover on the fancy direct edition. The newsstand edition is simply the plain cover that doesn't have all that. Now, the print run estimated is 171,000 copies, but that would be both covers combined. Now, we know that in this case, in the 90s, it's the fancy shiny covers that had the big print runs. So even the direct edition newsstand versions are always harder to find. So the two copies here, the Prism version and the plain version, rank 5th and 6th of the year and 153rd and 171st of the decade. So you can see the slight difference in the shininess of the X-Men logo. And one of them says direct edition on the cover and the other doesn't. Here's the price guide growth for all grades combined for the two different versions. And you can see they're almost at the same price. The Prism version is $20 and the regular non-enhanced version is $18. And you can combine the census. And even though the Prism one is the one higher in demand, it also has the biggest print run, and it's the more common one on the census, 409 compared to the non-fancy version, which is the direct newsstand edition at 90. So that takes 5th and 6th places of the year. Next on our countdown, in 4th place, we have Deadpool #4. Again, his first ongoing series. This issue features Hulk, Dr. Kilbrew, and Siren. Print run at a low 68,000 copies. It ranks 4th of the year and 117th of the decade. There are 104 copies graded, 53 high grade. Heritage has sold none of these. This one's worth a little bit more because of the Hulk crossover in this issue. In the Overstreet price guide, it had a little bump in the past year. It's now a $25 book. There are 29 9.8s on the census of this book. Next in 3rd place is another issue of Deadpool, and this time it's issue number 11. Why is 11 worth so much? Well, it's got a homage cover, Amazing Fantasy 15. That's kind of fun. It's also got appearances by the Great Lakes Avengers, The Watcher, Craven, and Norman Osborn. We have Peter Wood's cover and art. Print run at a low 53,000 copies. It ranks 3rd of the year, 70th of the decade, 165 copies graded, 59 high grade. Heritage has sold one of these. And in the Overstreet price guide, again, a little bump in the past year in higher grades. It's now a $38 book. There are 22 9.8s on the census. Well, now we're getting to the two big books of the year. In 2nd place, we have Incredible Hulk, 449, first appearance of the Thunderbolts, which includes Citizen V, Meteorite, Techno, Mach 1, Songbird, and Atlas. We have Mike Deodato Jr. cover and art. Print run estimated 120,000 copies. The book ranks 2nd of the year, 22nd of the decade. Look at the census. People really going hard on Thunderbolts. The census has jumped like crazy. 2,100 copies on the census, including 1,200 9.6s or higher. Heritage has now sold 10 copies of this book. In the Overstreet price guide, you can see there's definitely growth year by year in all grades for this book. This has now made a big jump up to $90. There are 587 9.8s on the census of this book. Which brings us to #1. And yes, you probably could have guessed it. Deadpool #1, his first ongoing series. And of course, lots of demand for that and always will be. We've also got the first appearance of T-Ray and Blind Al in this book. We've got Sasquatch, Zoe Culloden, and Noah Dubois appearing in this issue. It's a wraparound cover by Ed McGuinness. Print run estimated at only 112,000 copies. In the late 90s, print runs were really down. People were not speculating, and Deadpool was not the monster character he is today in mass appeal. The book now ranks #1 of the year and 21st of the decade. There are almost 2,000 copies graded, over 1,000 9.6s or higher. Heritage has sold 11 of this iconic cover from 1997. On the census, the book is actually stalled in all grades, currently sitting at $95. There are 531 9.8s of this book. Now, what's interesting, let's compare all these books on the census. You will see this is actually quite unusual. There is not a single 9.9 on the census on any of these books, but some of these are definitely common in 9.8s, especially Hulk 449 and Deadpool 1, both with over 500 9.8s each. And at the low end, Daredevil 368 only has 2 copies on the entire census. Hard to believe it actually made our top 10, but it's a fact. And if you look at the rest of the census, you can kind of compare what's the common books and which are the really high demand books. So there you go. Top 10 books of Marvel for 1997. The series continues every week. So please subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching.